I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Monroe County Stormwater Management Board on Wednesday, August 11th, 2021. And the first order of business is approval of the minutes.
I move approval of the minutes for July 14th, 2021.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Sutonia, would you please call the roll?
Julie Thomas,
I'm gonna abstain.
Lee Jones,
Yes.
Jenny Githens,
Yes.
Sean Enright Randolph.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Motion passes. The next order of business is public. Is there any public comment for items that are not on the agenda? And those comments will be limited to 3 minutes. And is there, Mr. Egan, would you help me out? Is there anyone from the public here?
I don't even see anybody from the public here.
Okay. All right. Being no
Hands raised.
hands raised, Ms. Sutonia, would you please call the roll?
Was there a motion?
No, there was not. I'm sorry. May I please have a motion?
So,
I move that we accept the agenda as is.
Excuse me, I'll second.
And next we have staff reports. Ms. Sutonia? Do you have
Excuse
a
me.
report for us?
Okay.
President, were we supposed to call roll on that or?
Tron, we don't do that in this meeting. I know that's typical and in planning, but we don't
Perfect.
really do that here.
Sorry, I had to use my laptop today, so I'm a little out of sorts.
all right, so we're good to move on to staff reports.
Yes, please.
Okay. I was hoping to have news for you in my staff report today, but the state SWIFT grants, they've extended their review time. They were supposed to have decisions back by last Friday, but they've extended it to the middle of the month. So I unfortunately have no update for you on that, other than the fact that they got a lot of applications. So that is my lack of a staff report today, unfortunately.
Okay, well, thank you. That's a bit of a disappointment, but we can keep on hoping.
Yep.
And we have no old business, so we'll move on to new business. The stormwater expenditure report, please, for July 2021.
Right. The expenditure report has been updated, and I checked the percentages for year-to-date used against our account balance spreadsheet, and everything is up to date now. So year-to-date used for our in the 10s, labor and fringe is 46.5%. In the 20s, office supplies, field crew supplies and maintenance, etc. We've only used so far 27% of those funds. The 30s, let's see. We've had a CDL test fee, some disposal fees, the charges for the stormwater calendars, which I want to give a huge shout out to Connie for her work on the calendar this year. The contest was such a success, getting the kids involved. She's had great success at the fair, distributing a lot of this. So little tidbits of educational things and quotes in there as well. It looked great. So thank you, Connie, for making that such a success. Here you go. That's a lot of the printing costs associated with that is shown here. All right. Gas is looking pretty consistently the same from month to month with just the size of our stormwater crew, the amount of driving that they're doing, which with the additional we received, I'm confident we're still in the good range. Other standard things, we've had to rent some equipment and I guess I'm going to be working with Jason to just make sure that we have the equipment we need. If it would be more economical to purchase a piece in the future, in the coming years, and that'll be that. But we're basically up against the amount that was budgeted for the rental of equipment for the year. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Cherry Lane, they have the final 2 box culverts in place in the ground. So big shout out to our stormwater crew and Jason for making that happen this year. This has been a huge project for us. Those driveway culverts are very large and there's just a lot going on Cherry Lane. So I signed one of the final invoices for those box culverts today. So we'll be seeing that being completed and paid out over the next couple of months. Baby Creek, just ongoing with finishing up the final plans. And same thing for Stip Road and Morse Creek. Stip Road, the environmental assessment for that has been finishing up. We received comments back from the federal agencies and they're anticipating it'll be done within the next month or so. All right, and that's about it. Year-to-date uses around 40%. Yes, Julie.
Yeah, I just have a question about Cherry Lane. Is that project now almost complete or complete? Where, if you were to look at that entire project on a percentage scale, where are we at?
I want to say between 90 and 95%. I think they still have work to do, just finish work basically, but I think the bulk of the excavating is done and installation of the box culvert. So.
And I'm sorry I missed the July meeting, but how did that particular section hold up when that big rain in June?
I didn't receive any complaints for that. So I'm going to say it was good. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that wasn't something that we were honestly really worried about. So.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Actually, Julie, I had gone down there I think it was the week before last when the guys were putting in the other box culvert. And I asked that exact same question. Jason's been down there in contact with some of the property owners. And Kelsey's right there. They had no complaints on how everything held up on the end of June 18th. And the crew's doing a great job working with the property owners, them getting in and out of their driveways. And the box culverts are huge. It was amazing to go down there and see how huge those culverts are, but the crew has done a great job with that project.
That's wonderful.
Excellent.
Very exciting to have it finishing up. Commissioner Givens, you had your hand up earlier.
Oh, no, I was clapping.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Very good.
No.
I agree. Yes.
I also want to add on the equipment. Kelsey touched base on this a little bit. We did put a mini excavator and a vac truck into the GO bond. We're still waiting on word from the council on what will be funded, I believe. And the only other outstanding piece of equipment that we're kind of doing some research on is a skid steer with tracks versus wheels, the way I understand it. But we're trying to see if it's better to rent that. But I did want to touch a little bit on the vac truck. It is hopefully it stays in the bond, or a portion of it stays in the bond. If not, we will want to move forward of doing an additional coming up in the next month or two. We do have access to a vac truck that is available in, I believe, October. Otherwise, the holdup and getting things and equipment and materials in can be very lengthy, but we have been working with the company. So as soon as we hear on whether or not it's going to be in the GO bond or a portion of it, we will be asking permission to move forward with an additional for that. It's a piece of equipment that has broke down repeatedly over the last few years. We have sunk a lot of money And if you remember right, when we purchased that piece of equipment, it was a refurbished piece of equipment. So I think it's extended its successful life. So yeah, I wanted to provide you with that, the vac truck especially update.
Thank you. Mr. Enright Randolph, I believe you had a question?
Question / request, maybe.
We
I
can't
was-
hear you.
Let me change my microphone.
I just changed my microphone. Am I better? Okay.
Yep.
This thing doesn't sync up that great. My question would be, I guess, towards Lisa, and potentially in the next week, several weeks from now, I would very much enjoy maybe meeting some of the crew at one of these sites, Baby Creek, Stip Road, and just, get a on the ground perspective. I do go by the sites, but I don't necessarily know exactly what type of infrastructure and such that I'm looking for. So now that they're nearing the end of completion, I can make myself available, and I could even drive out there and meet whomever, and just kind of do a once through. And I think that would be very beneficial. So I would, I guess, be asking if that's possible. Oh, you're on mute.
There. Absolutely, Tron. We can let you know when we're going to put in that last box culvert
Okay.
on Cherry Lane. If you would like to go out on a day when they're using the back truck when it's working, would be happy to take you out there. It's been a couple of years since I've seen the back truck working, but it is a very powerful piece of equipment. I remember that, but we would be happy to take you out. It's a good crew, and they stay very busy. I don't know if you've met Erica.
Just when she was interning here, and a couple of times in a few other board meetings, but I have gotten the opportunity to meet her. Yes.
Great. Between Kelsey and Connie and Erica, and then that crew, they have made my life a lot easier. It's hard for me to get used to the efficiency of Kelsey, because she is just so ahead of the game than I'm used to. But nothing against Terry Quillman. He's a great guy. But Kelsey is just a step ahead of things on many items, and I'm trying to get myself used to that she's usually a step ahead of myself. And with Connie and Erica in that department also, it seems to be working very well, and I'm thrilled with the direction that this division of the department has gone, and that's through the support of this board. You've supported our decisions. You've just supported the additional crew, the equipment, and I think that we can still show you the justification of why everything is working.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Whoever needs to coordinate with me to set a date, just send it my way, and I'll put it on my calendar and make myself available.
Sure.
Yeah,
will.
let us all know.
Okay,
Cherry
absolutely.
Lane especially, I think that'd be good.
The crew would love to have you out. The crew would love it if you guys show up.
Can't we do a ribbon cutting? I mean, on
If
the
you
cold.
want, I can get the big scissors back again, but I don't think I can get the fire truck down there.
Can you get the huge scissors?
Can get the huge scissors.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Lisa. It's great to hear that everything is going so well, and that apparently a number of our decisions have worked out well. That's very nice. And if there is nothing further about the stormwater report, we can move on to the next item, which is the Lake Monroe Water Fund, a funding request from Miss Jane Martin.
Good afternoon. I appreciate your giving me a few minutes on your agenda to resurrect the request from the July meeting of asking the Stormwater Board to include 1/4 of funding in its 2022 budget for a development officer, which will match the 3/4 of funding for next year in the CBU budget. This would allow us a full year of runway, which we can, for a development officer, a fundraising officer, we can then seek corporate matches for that salary. We can initiate community events for the purpose of seeking donations and raising awareness. And we can also go after grant funding. So it's important capacity building for our water bank. Just a couple of other points that represent a rationale for this request. We have been project focused from the beginning. We participated in the fundraising for the gauge on the South Fork, the Kurtz gauge that was identified by Friends of Lake Monroe. We fill a critical fundraising gap. We are a water bank. Our job is to raise money that will fund other organizations in the Lake Monroe ecosystem. This is the first water fund in the state of Indiana. So we continue the innovation reputation of Bloomington, and it joins 43 water funds started by the Nature Conservancy across the globe, but the first one in Indiana. We represent the Lake Monroe Water Fund, a multi-county and multi-stakeholder coalition. So we can initiate projects upstream in watershed counties, Jackson and Brown specifically, that may be beyond the jurisdictional reach of either Monroe County or Bloomington. And we also represent a coalition that includes, importantly, both public and private forestry members, with forest being the primary effect in the watershed. Our vast 5-county watershed is mostly forested. So we're very keen to begin working with the forestry community, both the public and the private landowners. They're represented on our board and advisory committee to work toward the long-term sustainability of Lake Monroe. Your funding of $12,500 in next year's budget would be leveraged by the CBU money and many more times from the largest water companies, donations from community and grant funding. So this is an important element in our capacity building as a water bank. There were a couple of issues raised at the July meeting that I would like to address. One is, aren't we competitive with other members focused on Lake Monroe, such as Friends of Lake Monroe? And wouldn't we cannibalize some of the initiatives and some of the fundraising of those organizations? I believe we fill an important funding gap in our environmental ecosystem, and in fact, will provide critical funding to existing organizations. We offered to contribute half of the CBU money toward a watershed coordinator, toward the gap funding. And I spoke with Maggie about it and emailed with Sherry Mitchell Brooker about it. And it appears that the watershed coordinator does not want to be involved in fundraising, but we did offer that. It would have delayed us hiring a full-time fundraising officer, but we're trying to be cooperative and supportive with money that has been allocated to us. Again, I don't know if it will survive the 2022 budget, but it has been in there for some time and has survived so far. Then another question that came up was how long before we're actually able to fund projects. Believe me, I understand that most funders do not want to contribute to administrative costs, but want to know where the beef is, where the projects are. Since our initial task force, we have always been project oriented. I mentioned the Kurtz gauge on the South Fork of South Creek. We have 20 acres to be remediated that is identified by the DNR in our next year's budget. And we're also working on a proposal to include septic vouchers for Jackson, Brown County, and Monroe County. So we're very project focused. On August 3rd, I sent a letter to Maggie Sullivan of Friends of Lake Monroe in support of their 319 grant and pledged a minimum of $5,000 toward the match, which I hope to go beyond in the future. So I would be glad to entertain any questions or comments at this point.
Thank you. Mr. Enright Randolph.
Yeah, I don't want to jump too far in line, and I don't actually have any comments or questions. I would be curious if the board would entertain listening to the staff's perspective on this proposal, so we can kind of hear the other side of this conversation as well.
That was what I intended to move to. I thought we might let the board ask any questions they have first, if they have any. And it seems not. So yes, please, Ms. Titonia, if you could let us know how you think about this.
Yeah. So Jane, thank you for the presentation. From my perspective, I see a lot of requests coming in from outside agencies for stormwater utility funds. And we are very supportive of the work being done for Lake Monroe because we want to do what we can to protect the lake, enhance the watershed around it. What I see is that the goal of the stormwater utility and the fee that we charge our residents and other property owners, it's for the maintenance and operation of the storm sewer system. And funding a outside staff position that will be for fundraising, it just seems a little bit beyond what our mission is. But we do want to help in whatever future way we can. We want to be able to get money on the ground for projects and practices within our county. I am concerned about the inputs from the other counties, but I'm going to leave that to the larger organizations to handle. My focus is on the operation and maintenance of our stormwater infrastructure in the county, pollution prevention efforts, and any watershed-wide projects that we can get on the ground in that watershed. That is my perspective on this. I'm just wary of funding more staff that, we don't have any control over them. It's, not directly participating in the maintenance of our stormwater utility. I just see it as a bit of a stretch for us. But.
Thank you. this point, does anyone have any questions for either Ms. Martin or Ms. Betonia?
If I may, I actually had put my hand up right before Ms. Titonia started to speak, and I was going to raise.
Sorry.
No. I don't. No. It's hard when we're all in Zoom. Don't. I actually was going to ask raise some of the same issues, because I think we need to stick to what is our main purpose here, which, we all want good water, but we also have to understand what our mission is with all this. And I'm not sure that there's a good match.
Thank you.
You know your mission far better than I do. And I do understand that you fund infrastructure and manage water movement, is how I think about it. But certainly upstream effects that are beyond your jurisdictional ability to fund have an effect, and oftentimes a dramatic effect, on the downstream county, both in terms of quality of water and movement of water, it seems to me. So to the extent that we can improve sewer systems, in terms of either vouchers to clean out sewer systems or put a riser in a septic system to, I meant septic system, to alert the homeowner when it's time to clean out the septic system. These affect Monroe County and affect the quality of our water. So just as Friends of Lake Monroe is funding remediation projects in multiple counties, it's all part of water quality as well as the movement of water. So far be it from me to tell you what your mission is and whether this fits into your mission, but it seems to me that it's part of a connected whole that will improve not just the quality of water, but the upstream effects of in the watershed.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I really appreciate what Ms. Martin said, and I think that hearing some of these ideas is going to be really useful for us. For example, what ways can we support county residents who have a septic, and whether they're on, I know a lot of the counties in Lake Monroe watershed, but they may be in another watershed. I think there are programs that we can undertake here if that was deemed to be important in terms of all of the priorities that we have, because we are juggling quite a bit, and Ms. Titonia can talk about that, I'm sure. There's a lot to juggle. So I think I can see the point that folks are making here about ensuring that when we are utilizing these taxpayer fees, these fees for stormwater, that we are putting them toward direct use rather than administration in another agency. And I can see that has some real value. But I think it would be really helpful to have some of these ideas, which I think are great that Ms. Martin brings, discussed somewhere, somehow, and brought to us as a proposal that, we could fund potentially directly, the septic, the risers, all that good stuff. So just an idea there, but I think that these ideas are really important to talk about. I can understand the perspective better about why funding administration is much harder to justify than funding a program that is actually collecting data or actually performing a service directly. So I appreciate that, everybody's input today. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none.
I do. I want to make sure one thing's clear is my statement last month that these initiatives from the Friends of Lake Monroe and the Water Fund are going after the same funding resources. So, that makes this whole thing a bit more challenging, if you will. One of my looming concerns is that if we move forward with the Water Fund, that we then direct the Friends to the Water Fund, and then they're under their potential guidance and objectives, which concerns me. That's why I like the way that we kind of have these paired into two separate groups, but this might be lumping them together in a sorts of, where the Friends might get their funding. Also, if we moved forward with something like this, I would like to see the allocation here be given to the Friends as a match, not to facilitate the gap year, but for the match that the city hasn't committed to at this point, and we have. I do want to just push back a little bit. I feel like Kelsey's right on point, but the watershed is in 5 counties and they all impact Lake Monroe. So even though it's not directly projects within Monroe County, it is a project potentially within the watershed that does benefit Monroe County. So we need to figure out how to put in proper protections for the entire watershed. But so I do feel like this does fall into our mission, but right now it's still a bit messy. I'd like to see more of an action plan as well, how these things move forward. Everyone knows, and I say it quite regularly, that I'd love to see the ability to spread some of this services in partnership with 319s or here internally with our stormwater department, where we can help better serve the ratepayers. So issues that are occurring on private property like septics and other things of that nature. Also, if this is something that my colleagues here want to move forward with, I would like to see something written into the bylaws of the Water Fund where a stormwater management board member is on the board of directors or a staff of the stormwater department. I don't think if we do move forward with this, that this is a one-time thing. So I think we need to position ourselves to be more influential and be able to get periodically updates of what's going on with this money. It's tough. This is a tough one. I think it's going to be a while before maybe we're in a position to, internally staff someone with the same objectives and skill sets here to move forward with. But I think the intent is very admirable. And I don't know who used this term once, but I don't know if it's ready for prime time. But also, I think this is kind of the pilot year to see if it's successful. So I'm really going to just hold all my questions and comments back from this point on, listen to my colleagues, and try to determine where I stand at the end of this discussion.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Martin.
I just want to answer a couple of these comments and questions and concerns. We would be delighted to have someone from Stormwater on our board. We have Cheryl Munson from representing Monroe County, Commissioner, but we would love to expand that to stormwater so we can sync up our funding projects more closely with your mission, because it's critical and it's important. So we would love to do that. We also are willing to gladly adhere to any reporting requirements. And believe me, I've been in fundraising for a couple of decades, and I know that trying to fund personnel and administrative costs is the least attractive, which is why we're including a project with every part of our evolution. As to whether we would go after similar grants to Friends of Lake Monroe, I think they have far greater ability to go after grants. It would be not smart for us to be in competition with Friends of Lake Monroe over similar grants. But there are six-figure forestry grants that we have not had the capacity to go after, federal grants that we've identified. They are listed, two of them are listed in your attachments. So we will coordinate very closely. It is not our intention to be anything but complementary and a bank for the existing ecosystem. I know we're the new kid on the block. We have no intention of being in competition with any of the existing fine organizations that have a different use. But I also think that the issue of water quality and water management is going to be an increasing challenge, and having multiple organizations that attack that problem, those issues, is going to be important in the future. It's not very sexy right now. We're trying to prevent a crisis, which will make this very sexy and very urgent. We're trying to get ahead of the power curve and get a bank put up that will complement every of the Sycamore Land Trust, the Forest Service, the private landowners, the health departments. Certainly Friends of Lake Monroe, the Sycamore Land Trust. We brought the Nature Conservancy into the board. We brought Jackson County and Brown County into the mix. So I think we have a strong coalition. We look forward to bolstering it, and we would welcome the important voice of the Stormwater Board.
Thank you. Ms. Ridge, would you like to weigh in on this topic at all?
I would be happy to. Kelsey and I discussed different avenues of the direction that we go over the last 6 months with the new increase of the stormwater fee. I believe after we did our initial evaluation and we had FSG do us a financial report, it realized where we were lacking within the department and the needs of the department and the needs of the Monroe County residents on where stormwater is affected, where we lack in the equipment, the personnel to be able to build a good program, comply with everything that we're to comply with the state and with stormwater. We've discussed a lot over in the last probably 6 months of the direction of the department, the needs of the department, what we're required to report, the new requirements that are being brought down and enforced upon the department that we will be undertaking. As you see, coming up on the agenda, we have a new amendment to the agenda for a new admin staff. The reason for this is because of the new stormwater ordinance that's going to be taking effect. It's going to be requiring a lot more staff duties. As I discussed a while ago about a new vac truck, that's a $500,000 piece of equipment. Again, all of these needs were brought forth with the FSG report and why the stormwater fee was increased for the county. I believe as when you, at your public hearings and listening to the residents of Monroe County and the problems that they deal with on a daily basis, that as the director of this department and this portion of this division, that's my number one goal, is helping these residents since we increased the fee. We don't know where annexation is going to leave us. That's still out there. I think that we can support the Lake Monroe Water Fund in different areas, whether it be through education programs, how we help other divisions and Friends of Lake Monroe, or whether it be soil and the Soil and Water Division. I do believe that we do help these programs. We're happy to assist in these programs. But I guess it's just as looking at as the overall department, I feel that we do have some areas that are maybe of a little bit of a higher need at this point in commitment. Not saying that I don't support this, not saying that at all. I guess I just have to look at the overall picture and where our budget is, and we look at each funding individual. And I think after, again, Kelsey and I have to agree with her that I don't know that this request for staff kind of fits into what our requirements where the stormwater fee is mandated.
Thank you. That was helpful. Are there any further questions or comments?
I have one last comment. It's okay. I just want to clarify that the 319 grant, they are not able to pay for anything related to septic systems or that maintenance. So that all has to come from some other source. It's an issue all around the state and I'm sure beyond. So I do see a need to find some way to fund this issue, because it's really hard to get funding for issues with septic systems in rural areas. So I just want to say I recognize that, and that's really important, and that we, as far as I know, have not really committed any funding to anything like that, since the 319 grant doesn't have any, they can't fund those types of projects. So.
Thank you. That's good to know. Anything further? All right. Yeah, well, let me say that I am certainly very supportive of your mission. I agree that I think it's something that's really needed now and in the future is going to be increasingly important. And I love the fact that this group is getting us ahead of the game. That's certainly very valuable. At the same time, we really are required to balance the needs of the citizens within the county. And we heard from many, many citizens who have pretty critical flooding issues and need help. And we can't come close to funding all of that right now. So while I hope that you will come back to us in the future with any projects that fit a little bit better, this isn't really something I can support right now. So if there are no further questions or comments, I can ask, would anyone like to make a motion?
Would there be any consideration to maybe tabling this to a future date that maybe like in 2022 to make sure this comes back to us? Maybe we'll have a better idea of what the annexation process is. Maybe after, the inspector has been settled a bit more, and we are even looking at the amendment to hire on another personnel, or I'm not too sure, we'll get into that later, if we're amending a current job. But I would like this discussion to come back. I think if we were able to table it into, 6 months from now or something, that shows our willingness to continue this discussion, shows that we are semi-supportive, but we're just not in a good place or point in time to finish this. One statement I made last month is, I feel like we need to finish our first project before we take on another project. So we might even be getting, some preliminary feedback of what that conclusive watershed study is going to be looking like. Those are just my thoughts. It shows us being semi-supportive, because then we'll bring it back up versus them kind of submitting it back to be on the agenda. That's just my final thought and comment.
Would you like to make a motion?
I would recommend that we continue this until the March 2022 meeting of the Stormwater Board.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? And do we have any public comment? Which I don't think we do. Seeing none. Ms. Titonia, would you like to call the roll?
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Penny Gittens,
No.
Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
Lee Jones,
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Martin, and please do come back in a year. We would very much like to hear from you, and hopefully can figure out some better way to support your efforts.
Thank you.
And our next order of business is an amendment to the stormwater budget for 2022. Ms. Sitonia, is this?
Yeah, so this is something that I've been working on for a few weeks now. So the new stormwater management ordinance is going to require our program to take on a lot more responsibility with the creation of a new stormwater permit, which we knew about, and taking on the erosion control ordinance from the planning department. So Terry had this all set up and was still figuring out how to make this work. And this was kind of just left in my lap when he left, and he didn't have a good solution for it. He tried coming up with some plan, but it's going to be a lot of work to take on an entire enforcement program. We're not currently doing this work right now. Connie does the SWIP reviews. I review the drainage plans and other stormwater infrastructure. She does all of the erosion control inspections for sites that are 1 acre or larger, and that's it. So if they don't meet that 1 acre threshold, then we don't have eyes on them unless the planning department asks for our assistance or something. But the new ordinance is going to increase the threshold of what we're responsible for, and in addition to pursuing enforcement and issuing fines and things. So currently Connie has 47 active construction sites right now, and that would increase a lot. Maybe, we'd process a few hundred permits a year. That's just a guess based on what threshold we set for the stormwater permit. So looking at all of this and the current workloads of Connie, myself, and Erica is just fitting in there, doing the inspections of new infrastructure and all the post-construction ponds and all of that. She's running with that. But there is a need for administrative help with an entire permitting program. So we decided to ask for a full-time administrative assistant for the stormwater program, just for stormwater. Main task is to help with permitting and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. Main help is to help with our permitting program because we have OpenGov, and that is going to be a huge help and assistance for it, but we need someone to collect all the fees. We'll have fees for each permit. We will have inspection fees and re-inspection fees, tracking inspections, scheduling inspections, and as well as enforcement programs. So progressive enforcement program, is going to take a lot of work, and Connie does not have the time for it. So let me pull this up really quick so I can show it to you. So this is a draft I created just based on other admin assistant positions, mostly from the building department. I also looked at the planning department. So like I said, most of it's going to be just for the permitting program, since the stormwater permit will be a new thing for the county. But there's going to be a lot of work involved just administratively for processing all of the new fees and fines that we will be administering. So that's it. Does anyone have any comments or want to discuss any part of this?
Do we have any? Oh, Commissioner Thomas.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is unfortunately going to be necessary, but I also think fortunately it's going to be necessary. I think it's going to help organize the workflow of what's become a very busy department. My understanding is that the plan would be to put this into the budget for council review for 2022, but actually not hire the person until we have completed the stormwater ordinance and the state has completed their work on what our requirements are going to be and what we're going to have to do. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. I absolutely support this. I know we have been using the time of other employees and other related departments, but it's really important to have this this position filled. So I appreciate you bringing this forward. Is there a total that's going to be added to the budget when this gets added in? Is there if base salary or base plus benefits? Yeah, because this wasn't in the packet. Well, it wasn't in my copy of the packet. So, how much for? Okay.
So this has been all evolving pretty quickly, so I do apologize for not including this in the packet and sending it late tonight. Lisa and I briefly discussed this morning. Lisa, please chime in if you want to talk. I modeled this off of the admin assistant in the building department, same level, but I know there are other admin assistants at lower levels and all of that. So my main reasoning is that this person I'm hoping is going to be able to coordinate across departments with our legal department. So that's why I chose to model off of the building department's position the most. So.
Yeah, and to tag on to that, what we'll have to do is go through the council process, and basically we will just fill out the questionnaire. I think they have about a 5 or 6 page questionnaire. They will actually send that, we will take it to PAC, They will, if they approve it, it will go to WIS. WIS will determine the level of the job category, whether it be a comment 1, 2, 3, 4, or if they think it's a PAT 1. We can't make that decision. I think this is a great idea. We've been utilizing, as much as stormwater has grown, we've been utilizing the admin staff out of the MVH budget, highway budget. So their work has increased over the years with the new personnel, more claims, more payroll, things like that. I think we still have some things to iron out on the duties, but overall, Kelsey's right. This one will be strictly for stormwater. And this permit process, this is a big undertaking for the department. It is something that's not been done in 40+ years in this department, of taking in any type of revenue on a daily basis in the enforcement. But we don't want to set ourselves up to fail with a new stormwater ordinance. We want to be prepared for when that takes effect, that we are ready to go. We have the staff to implement it, and we have the staff to enforce it. I think that's where sometimes we could have fell behind if we don't stay ahead of the game. And I think this keeps us moving to be able to enforce that new stormwater ordinance that everyone's put so much time and effort into.
Thank you. Is there any further comment or questions? Mr. Enright Randolph.
I just pulled up the most recent amended salary ordinance, and Lisa is absolutely correct. It's going to go through the council's process, and then we're not certain what will come back, but let's just say it stays at comment 4. I'll give you some at a 40-hour work week, right? That would be at a minimum salary of $37,960. But I would anticipate we might be hiring someone at the mid-level, which would be at $41,475, just to give you some ballpark numbers there. But like Lisa said, this isn't a concrete description, and it might come back to us categorized differently.
Thank you. Any further comment or question?
I'm completely behind this, so that's why I'm being quiet.
Okay, yes, I cannot imagine how this could be accomplished without some more administrative assistance. And I've always felt that basically the stormwater plan doesn't have a lot of meaning if there's no enforcement going on. And enforcement really is extremely important. So this is actually one of the things that I hope to see come out of the stormwater fee. So I certainly will support it also. Is this something we need a vote on?
I think it would be good just to have your backing on it in a vote, because I feel that once we go to the council and we have this in the budget, that we can state that we have the support of the Stormwater Board.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move that we amend the budget as outlined, adding this administrative assistant personnel to our budget for 2022.
Second.
Yeah. Give that to Penny.
And let's see, I believe we still do not have any public. So, Ms. Sutonia, would you please call the roll?
Penny Giffens,
Yes.
Lee Jones,
Yes,
John Enright Randolph,
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you.
motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And are there any last minute comments that board members wish to make? And seeing none, our next meeting will be September 8th, 2021, and we are now adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have
you.
a good rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.
You too.